perception is that Earth is school, and I believe in reincarnation.
Okay.
So, I believe that the experiences, some of them are kind of agreed upon before we're born.
Like a contract?
Like a soul contract. And we decide these are the experiences we want to have in order to, further grow our soul. So, for me, it's not good or bad. It's about perspective. It's about learning. It's about growth and doing what we can while we're here, not only to better ourselves, but our families, and our communities.
So I want to ask a question just so I understand. So in that thought process, are we saying that, like those children, right? I love children, so I go back to children. So, but the children have agreed to that suffering. Is that what that means when someone? I'm just trying to understand.
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. You want to add anything, Tay?
I don't think there's rhyme or reason to any of it, and I think when I finally accepted that, like, I felt peace. Like, I hate to be like, nothing matters, because it sounds so cynical. But again, to my daughters, like Nick Houston, I remember her second day alive, her heart stopped, and I had just gotten home, and we had to drive back to Saginaw. And after she was saved by the doctors and nurses, these chaplains came in, and they had asked, do you want me to pray over her? And I remember it made me so angry, because I was like, for what? The doctors already did what they need to do. And I let them, because my daughter's father's mother was there, and she's religious. So I said, I think she'll find comfort in it. You're more than welcome to. But I remember being almost like, get out. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you helping with? Like, pray that she goes back in me for another 3 months and we don't have to give her a blood transfusion. If that makes sense.
No,
so
yeah, I hear you.
I think I had to accept a long time ago, like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just, bad things happen to good people and vice versa just because. It just does. Victim of circumstance sometimes.
Okay. Did you want to?
Yeah, but I don't think any of us are saying that we're okay when it happens.
Yeah.
Sure.
Either, because it is for anyone that doesn't grieve with some of the things you hear about are happening.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for whatever religious position you hold or humane position you hold.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah.
And anyone that says they fully understand it, I don't think we ever fully will completely get it. But our hope is that our belief will get us through it and that others will find a way through it as well. And we hope they will get
And
through
I understand it was coming from a good place, too. And I
Yeah,
know a lot of it was,
Mine is not a
misguided
rebuttal to
anger.
yours.
It was just
Right.
like,
Just a
wrong place, wrong time. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
and these guys are here,
Mine is by no means a rebuttal to what you
No.
said.
Sure. Thank you.
I appreciate what you said.
Yeah. So I want to ask you all, how do you interact with others who don't share your same beliefs, right, regarding your faith walk, or even, what'd you say?
I said it's fun.
No. How do you interact with others who don't share your same beliefs regarding your faith walk or even moral principles? And for example, some people frown on women who wear revealing, and I use that in quotes because, that's subjective, who wear revealing clothes, while others believe they are liberated and should be celebrated, right? When you have people who are, streetwalkers or, kind of, it's the truth, right? We live in a time right now where that has been celebrated, right? And then some people, of course, do not believe in that. So how do we balance that? Because all of us interact with people every day who don't necessarily agree with our faith walks, right? So how do you? Yeah, go ahead.
Coexisting with other people's beliefs is built into Unitarian Universalism.
Talk a little bit more. I'm sorry, because I'm having a hard time hearing you. So I want to hear what you say.
Coexisting with other people's beliefs is built into Unitarian Universalism. We're there to support one another's search. We don't gather around shared beliefs necessarily, shared theologies, but shared values. We affirm some key shared values. But we test, like I said, we're testing our beliefs with one another all the time. And so we practice that with one another so that we can then help do that in the world.
What are some of the core values you all stand for people that may not know?
Love, justice, equity, transformation. Those are democratic process, inherent worth, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in on that? How do you interact with people who see things very differently than you do?
I treat them as people. At the core of this, if we can't meet as people, if we just can't meet as human beings, then we missed it in whatever it is we believe, because people are people and they deserve an opportunity to live the life that we live. Even if they don't live the way we believe, they should have a fair opportunity to live it. Do I believe certain positions? I absolutely do. I hold to them. But for me, it's fun. It's absolutely enjoyable to meet different people. Diversity is, there's nothing wrong with diversity until you make it wrong. It doesn't mean everybody has to be like you or believe like you. And it shouldn't stop you from believing what you believe. If I believe it, if I'm strong in my faith, then I can interact with you and still be strong in my faith. By the way, I've been over to the Unitarian Church several years back, too.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
No, I agree. People ask me all the time, like, how do I talk to different people? And I say the same thing. It's not going to change who I am, right? Talking to them, embracing them, showing up for them. It's not going to change the core of who I am. So it's easy for me to do it because we both believe what we believe. And then sometimes we walk away finding some commonalities, and sometimes we don't, and that's okay. So, yeah, I agree. Anybody else want to add on to that?
I do.
Sure, please.
So I think this is a unique cross-section of humanity of the people in this room who are willing to have this conversation, I think, and want to hear and want to be open to what other people believe and are curious and celebrate that diversity. I think outside of spaces like this, I think there's a lot of fear in having those conversations, and a testament to you in this really hard work that you do, gathering people of different beliefs and encouraging safe spaces, because I think a lot of our world isn't a safe place to have conversations with people who are different than us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for saying that, because we all are pretty open up here, right? That's why we're here. But in the world out there, sometimes it's hard, right? People go into different places, and if they don't dress the way that the people there believe that they should dress, it can be hard, right? So I do appreciate you all for showing up and doing this. Yeah, Eric.
One other thing, if I do have a pet peeve, it's people who use absolutist language, always and never, what was I thinking?
Was that the main point, though?
No.
Those preambles will get you.
Oh, I know.
Yes, go for it.
It's people who attribute a disaster to the will of God.
Yeah.
To me, that is blasphemy.
So explain that a little bit more.
To claim to know the will of God, for me, is blasphemous.
So give us an example of what someone would say.
Ultimately, that was what I was getting at before, in that it's God's fault that something happened.
Right.
Cancer.
Yeah.
Cancer. This child has cancer.
Yeah.
Oh, God did it. I mean, it's God's will, right?
Or an earthquake.
Or
Yeah.
earthquake, yeah.
Yeah.
That is just hard for me to come to grips with.
I was just going to say, I've always been pretty open-minded, and my beliefs are always the alternative, right, in most spaces. And I've always said, I'm not going to have a problem with your ideals or your thoughts, but you may have a problem with mine, and I kind of preset that when I have conversations with other people.
Naveed?
So I think one of the things, the important thing that we usually miss in those, when it comes up to differences and problems, that if we talk about religious decisions or like morality decisions, that decision rests with God. He is going to make the decision. We are just here to follow his commands or follow our faith that we believe in. So if somebody differs from me, that is not my right to tell that person which path that person has to take or who's right or wrong.
Sure.
And I think this is the good part again, I mean, all people are saying the same thing, is like the acceptance for different persons, different opinion comes when we sit down and we listen to each other and we have discussions, healthy discussions. That's when we start to listen to each other and develop a respect for each other. I think, and when we don't do that, that's when all the things that we see about hatred or racism or other issues, that's when they develop, because they don't know each other's opinion, each other's point of view. They do not tolerate each other's point of view. When we start doing that, that's when we start accepting other people. And yeah, I mean, if I don't agree with somebody, we can talk, discuss, and in the end, just have our own path, go on our own path.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you, everybody, for that. So my next question is, because I have so many questions and I just will not have enough time, but my next question is, what caused you to either stay on the path or get off the path, right? And when I say that, I mean, when we are born, we are all kind of given something, right? That is a real thing, right? Be it culture, religion, even political sides, right? When we are born into something, right? Do we all agree with that, at least, that we are born into something? So then my question is, what made you decide to stay on that path or to venture to a different path, right? So that's the question. What made you decide to stay or venture? Because I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but I know you're pretty open.
You've met me.
Yes, I know you personally. So with that said, like, you know, I don't know what you were born into as far as faith, and then now you do not believe. So was there a changing point that took place?
Yeah. Okay. So growing up, we actually went to church. We were one of those like 2-3 days a week. We were involved in like Bible study. I went to church camp and all that. I even had like this like little gold leaf Bible, and I was like my little prized possession. Yeah. You know, it was really pretty. Yeah. But honestly, a big part of it is I remember my mom reading me the story of Adam and Eve, like the children's book before bed, and I was like, cool. And then like I'd think about it, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, then when were the dinosaurs? Like, the dinosaurs aren't in the story. And then I'd be like, how did they get 2 animals on every boat? Like, I was just like, there were inconsistencies and holes. So I sort of approached it from a metaphorical standpoint to be like, okay, these are like symbolic. They're maybe not everything's literal, not everything's black and white. But then as I got older, a lot of it, and I know some of it is like I had said before, cynicism, being like, okay, I'm being a good Christian. Okay, I'm praying. Like, why isn't this working out? Why is it like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing? Why is everything going so wrong? So then I would try to be like, maybe I'm just angry with God, and then feel guilt in that aspect. So it was probably, I'll say 8th grade, freshman year, I was like, it just, personally for me, it just doesn't add up. And I remember I asked my mom, like, can I not go to church camp this summer? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I tried to get back to my faith, like I was baptized and everything, and I was like, it doesn't add up for me. I think there's too many inconsistencies, there's too many holes, like I don't feel that faith. And like I said, I think I finally found peace then. Like I was like, because I almost felt guilty, like I was like letting God down for a long time. And I was like, I'm not being a good Christian anymore, or I'm doing this wrong, like I'm sinning, I miss communion. So when I finally was like, I'm just going to be good because I want to be good and I don't have to believe in this higher power. Like, I'm going to, like, go by morals and ethics of a society. I think, like, I felt better. Like, it legit was like a weight was lifted off me.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your transparency. Anybody want to add to that? Go ahead, Kristen.
So, my path was real curvy. My family, real curvy. My parents were Christian, but they didn't go to church, you know, one of those. But I was jumping on every bus that came through. So I consider myself a Christian until I was about 14. My stepfather was Muslim, so we read from the Quran every night. We did those things. I found a lot of peace there for a long time. But there were always questions, right? There was always more. And in both of the religions, at least my experience was I was shut down when I had questions, you know. And I found paganism on my own in the sense I had a lot of ideals based on all of my past experiences, and then I found a community that held those like-minded
Yeah.
beliefs.
Yeah.
And I didn't know there was a word for it or a group for it.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to add to that?
Just
Yeah.
when I was a kid growing up, sometimes I would ask my mom some questions, and she would just say, "Don't ask that question." Not necessarily about religion,
But period.
just period.
I
Don't
know.
ask that question.
Trust me, I know, Lord.
Yeah, okay, you know what I'm talking about then. Okay, old school. Just sit down, be quiet. But what I discovered is she really didn't have an answer she didn't know.
Yeah, yeah,
So oftentimes her not knowing came across as being really hard against, really hard against me. And unfortunately, for some very well-meaning people, the truth is they don't have an answer, but they feel compelled based upon their position to give you one. Not having an answer doesn't mean there's not truth. And that gets missed so often.
yeah,
So people would shut you down because they don't have an answer out of their own fears and things. But I believe that maturity in any faith you believe, in any position you hold, should be able to stand up against the ridicule and the challenges. And being brave enough to say, I don't have an answer, but I still know this is what I believe.
yeah,
And in time, maybe you'll find it, or something to that effect. So I think for many people who grew up in faith and out of faith, it does happen that you run into those challenges where you just don't see it all the time. Guilty or innocent, whichever way you want to put it.
Yeah.
We've all faced that.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll share my journey was very winding as well, although rooted at the start of it, my grandfather was a scientist here in the community working at Dow, and also a very, very faithful human. And his time with me in talking about big things, big questions. I remember vividly having a conversation with him about atomic theory. I was probably like in third grade.
Wow.
Yeah, so again, winding, very winding. And
That's okay.
and yeah, it was great. Yeah, and it was a beautiful model of the fact that faith and science were not exclusive. And so even though I wound in and out some very fundamental things in my youth to nothing at all for a while, finding myself back actually in the church that I was baptized in, and realizing that the space to ask questions and have doubts and be uncertain, to me, feel oftentimes more important than having answers and being certain. And being in a community of people who are willing to put those questions out there has kept me on the journey, and given me space to learn and explore and teach and elicit questions from young people. And and that has been the most fulfilling career I could have ever asked for.
Yeah. Thank you. Pete?
Well, my story is not that thrilling. I was born as a Muslim, and yes, my family was a religious family, so I grew up with that. But all of you, what you have been saying, and I've experienced that too, is like we always will have questions, and we all had questions. We all were looking for something to answer that questions. We all want peace in our heart. We all want something to cling on so that we can achieve those goals. And I think, and it's not that I didn't do anything like that. I did have questions, and whenever I used to ask questions, obviously, and not everybody would have answers, but somebody, one of the scholars told me, you know what, you have a book, the holy book that we follow. Why don't you read it and try to understand it? All the questions you'll find it over there. God gave this book, and if God gave this book that means this is going to be a complete book that will answer all your questions about faith, and not about science, I would say. So I started studying it more thoroughly, and whenever I would have a question or I was reading through it, I felt that some of my questions were answered. So that's actually helped me get my faith more stronger. So I feel that I got a better person, I became a better practicing Muslim as I grew older when I was trying to find my answers.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to get into a little bit about some laws and rules, right? Sometimes the laws of the land differ from some of our beliefs, right? For example, people have conversations surrounding abortion. People have conversation surrounding the death penalty, even with child abuse, right? And how we handle, and some people consider spanking abuse, right? And some people consider it a way of life, right? And so, so how do you, and I hate to use the word deal with it, but how, when the laws and the governing rules differ from your personal faith beliefs or whatever your beliefs are, your core beliefs, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you, am I making sense, right? Because, I mean, we have these conversations about things all the time in regards to, like I said, abortion, death penalty. For me personally, I don't believe in a death penalty, right? I don't believe in punishing someone for murdering somebody by murdering them, right? But then also, I've never had anybody be taken from me by someone, right? So I don't know how it would feel, right? If it was someone close to me, and then I had to respond to that same question. It's easy for me to say it in this space, right? But if I was in a different space, I don't know. So I don't judge people who advocate for different things, right? So I'm just asking you all, whatever your beliefs are, how do you kind of align with that or not align with it, or kind of speak up about it, or participate in this world when you have different beliefs? Am I making sense? Because I have a lot in my head, and I hope it's coming out right. So, yeah, I see your brain saying things over there, Eric, so go ahead.
Trying to rethink the question. How do we reconcile our deepest held beliefs with perhaps laws we don't agree with?
You said that so much better, fewer words and everything, so thank you. Thank you so
I don't
much.
have any answers. I just wanted to articulate it.
So, do you have any answers?
I don't have any answers.
A better way of asking, okay. Does anybody have any answers up here?
I do.
Go ahead, Krista.
I think that it's very important, especially if we live in a democracy, that there is a hard and fast separation between church and state.
Absolutely.
Period. We can all believe whatever we believe. Like, for me personally, you know, I believe abortion is a woman's right. But I think it's dismissive to say that it's not a moral issue. It's also a moral issue, right? But that's that woman's
Correct.
moral issue, right? It shouldn't be legislated. So for me, I think I have a difficult time seeing others' religious ideals become law.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to chime in?
I agree with what she said.
No, okay.
We're on the same page.
Okay. Naveed?
It's a tough question. I don't know how to answer that. The same is like, yeah, there are times that my religious beliefs are different than the laws, and that's exactly the portion where it's a sensitive issue for all of us, and the majority of us believe the other way, and we'll hope that this doesn't become a law, but the way is like we would follow the land of law if you have to.
Yeah, yeah. Because I always wonder that, like, you know, would people not follow it, right? If it really goes against the core, right? Are there some things that you would challenge, even though it is the law, right? Would you challenge it if it is deeply not aligning, right, with your?
I think if it's if it's deeply not aligning with it, you have to be willing to pay the cost for challenging it.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
you're willing to do that and it doesn't go against your principles of what you believe, and for me, I start there with what do I fundamentally and basically believe. That's why I start first. Then I ask myself the question about humanity.
Yeah.
And then I ask myself about responsibility. And in the end, one basic thing for me is right is right, and some things are just downright wrong. And so my point is, I try to follow down that. Some things can be wrong against that person, to do that to them, to impose that upon them. So those are the types of decisions but again, it's not an easy thing to do it, but you have to be willing to do that and stand your position if that's what you believe. And clearly we all have differences in the way we view these things, but if we believe that and we're willing to stand by it and, like a better term, bet our future on it, then that's how it will be. But that's how I do it. I just start with my basic fundamental beliefs. I look at humanity. I look at responsibility. Then bottom line, some things are just wrong
Yeah.
against any society.
So if I
Thank
add
you.
something on this one, it's like simple example, because that abortion is a very, very sensitive topic. Simple, in our religion, we don't drink alcohol.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, in this land, it's not prohibited. If I go to a restaurant, people next to me are drinking. So what do I do? Nothing. That's my belief. That other person believes differently. It's not harming humanity, or it's not harming my beliefs. So let that person live the way they want to live.
Yeah.
Obviously, again, if you take the topic of abortion, but if it's going to be, I hope so, that religion, the law doesn't come like that, but I will have the option, if it comes to me or my family, that we
Correct.
choose. Now we'll choose life,
Right.
which is I'm pro for life. So, but if the law is different, but it lets me choose life, I will always choose life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else wanna add
Sorry I
anything?
used the word always, but just...
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's funny. Thank you. So I want to ask you all, do miracles exist? Right? Do they prove, and I'm using that very loosely, right? Do they prove that there's a God, right? Some people will say that if miraculous things happen, what we consider miraculous, that is God doing that. That is when some people say it's okay to say God did it, right? Right? Sometimes people say that. And so it's this idea that do we believe that miracles do exist? Is that a way of proving that God? I mean, I've had things happen in my life, right, that I know for a fact to me seemed miraculous, right? Where things that I couldn't explain how they happened, right? And so I just wonder, for people who believe or don't believe, right? Do you believe that miracles exist? And if so, is that a cause and effect of a God existing, right? Do you believe that? Eric, you got to say something this time. You got to have an answer this time.
My inclination is to believe that miracles themselves must exist in the natural world, must obey the laws of physics. That anything that doesn't is, I wouldn't call a miracle. I've never observed it myself. And yet, I don't know what this is. I don't know where it comes from or where it's going. Life itself is a miracle. The fact that our planet exists in the cosmos is a miracle. I guess that's kind of where I'm headed with that.
Yeah.